Welcome back to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host, and today we're going to be diving into how to kind of decode yourself, how to become better overall, how to look and feel better and do it at a high level through discovering a new perspective. And so we brought on Justin Rofflingshofer on the show today, who is the expert in this. He's got a new book coming out, which we'll let him hit on here at the end. He's been on shows like Dave Meltzer's podcast. You know who Dave Meltzer is. So doing a lot of great things. Been on many different TV shows to talk about all this. So I'm excited for him to be on the podcast today to dive into it. Justin, welcome to the show today.
Oh, it's so great to be here, and I just appreciate you opening up the platform and really just to dive in together to help level everybody up who's going to take part in this.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm excited through this conversation. Talking about leveling up, right? I'm on a fitness journey myself personally. Like I've always been like the skinny, tall, skinny kid, and trying to just be healthy and continue to stay healthy as I get older. I'm about to be 33 here not too long from now, and we always have to continue to elevate our personal development, our physical development. And so with that, to dive right into it, why did you what led you into this realm? What brought you into this focus?
Yeah, so it's a super easy answer. It's something that just became so clear and evident to me as such a young kid. I was born and raised in Canada. It's actually where I am right now. I'm up in Edmonton, filming this, live down in Miami currently. But, as I was born and raised here, hockey is basically what you have to do when you're born. It's part of the culture. You're born with skates on, they say. I think I learned to walk and skate at the same time. And, I happen to have a little bit of talent, and at 12 years old was playing with 14, 15-year-olds. And my dad looked at me and he said, "Son, talent will get you noticed, but consistency will get you paid." And as soon as he said that, it flipped a switch in my mind of, okay, what does it mean to be the most consistent version of myself? What does it mean in order to elevate the standard? What does it mean to be incredibly intentional, but also have absolute high aggressive patience? Because a lot of times we're unable to do that. And so here's, you've got a 13-year-old kid who's now measuring heart rate, who's measuring sleep quality, who's reading medical journals to understand things that he can do, looking into different things on the mental and emotional side of the game. I don't know if you know the name Todd Herman, but I was one of Todd's. He wrote the Wall Street Best Journal book titled "The Alter Ego Effect," okay. And he's just taken off in the mindset space, and so that really just started my journey in understanding this holistic side of performance, this holistic side of health, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. And as I continued on this journey, what ended up happening was I became uber obsessed. It ultimately drove everything for me. I came down to the States on a hockey scholarship at 18. I went and got 2 undergraduate degrees in exercise science and then nutrition. Went and got my master's degree, did my postgraduate doctoral work in heart rate variability and sleep, all looking for the pursuit of how do you elevate yourself. And the unique part, and the reason I say all of this education kind of combined to the sense of, oh, you know what to do, but now what does it look like in terms of how to do it? And that's where that mindset component comes in. It's not about a fitness journey. It's not about a health journey. It's a holistic life journey that you have to realize if you are obsessively obedient to what it is that you need to do and persistently patient, it's inevitable that you're going to win. It literally becomes impossible to lose, because when you do things over and over and over and over again, you end up what I call the empty mile. Everybody starts Everybody wants the business. Everybody wants the great family. Everybody wants the elite level fitness. Everybody wants to sleep well. Everybody wants the energy. Everybody wants the platform. Everybody wants the influence. Everybody's going to start, but champions finish. And the only thing that differentiates you from a champion is that they're more intentional, they're more obedient, and they're more patient.
Yeah, I love that. I think like the holistic and, I think you said aggressive patience, right? Just having that like in game, knowing that it's going to take some time, but putting in the actions that are needed, that consistency, like you mentioned, gets you paid, is crucial. I think that's what people a lot of times, the quote, they overestimate what they can do they overestimate what they can do in a short amount of time and underestimate what they can do in a long amount of time, kind of thing.
Yeah. Overestimate what you could get done in a month, underestimate what you can get done in a year.
Yeah, exactly. And so if people are starting out and they're kind of trying to figure out how this holistic thing can work for them, what are some things that they can start to do to kind of build that structure that can be a good foundation to continue this consistency, so they can endure?
Yeah, so it's what I come back to a lot of times when we talk about, okay, now how do we do it? Like, Justin, you've got me, like, that makes sense. Like, you've got me motivated. You got me a little bit inspired. It struck a chord within me a little bit. Okay, so now how do I put this into play and into action? Well, I could sit here and tell you, like every other expert, the best biohack to do, or the best workout to do, or the best nutrition plan to be on, or the best morning and night routine to create a $1 million empire. But I'm not going to sit here and do that, because each one of us are unique. Each one of us are different. Each one of us are in different seasons of life. Each one of us have different unique stressors, and we have to account for that. And so what we have to understand is that we don't rise or reach for the level of our goals, but rather we fall to the level of our systems.
Yep.
And 99% of us have systems that have been built unintentionally and thus are built for failure. Yeah. And so when we think about this, it goes, okay, Justin, now how do I build my system?
Right.
And it comes back to knowing your body. It comes back to understanding your body. It comes back to understanding what's going on mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally inside of you and in this experience that you're having that you call life. And so going back to how this philosophy and principles came into play, in 2009, when I stepped into the NCAA as health and performance director, was doing some consulting work in the NHL. What I noticed was that we had all of this data. We had heart rate variability data. We had heart rate data. We had training load data. We had power tracking. We had all of this great information. We had blood work. We had all this stuff. But everybody trained the same. Everybody recovered the same. Everybody slept the same. Everybody ate the same. And everybody supplemented the same. There was no individualization, no personalization, no uniqueness to what each individual needed. And at the same time, the coaches, the managers, the owners, the players would wonder why the majority of everybody got sick at the same time, while the majority of everybody got the same type of injuries, while why everybody's kind of energy all of a sudden drained around the same time, all around the league. And it came back to, well, you can't expect something different if you're not doing something different. Right. And so that was really where I started in creating individualized, personalized, N of one solutions for health optimization, because health comes before performance. We have to focus on health because it precedes performance. I always ask people who has great levels of capacity, and everyone throws up their hand. Oh, I can do a lot. I'm really, really able to power through a lot of things. I said, who has the same capacity when you have a cold, or when you have the flu, or when you have food poisoning, or when you're not sleeping well? Nobody's going to raise their hand. So health precedes performance. So how do we create individuality on that?
Yeah.
And so as I started to put this system in place, and I'll talk about how we do this in a second, we became the least injured team and the least sick team in the league within about a year and a half. And all of a sudden that consistency showed up every single year. Least sick, least injured. We started to win. We started to play better. We started to go deep in playoffs. We started to see national championships. We started to see conference championships. We started to see a lot of things that people are desiring for, that they're wanting, which is the outcome of winning, but they don't know how to establish the system and the process in order to get there. And so in my journey, 11 years later, still in the NHL, living that life for, like I said, just over a decade, I started to have massive brain fog for the first time. I started to have headaches. I started to have backaches. I started to not be able to sleep very well. And I'm a 32-year-old kid. I'm incredibly fit at the time, running world championship, High Rocks games, DECA series, CrossFit games, triathlons, marathons, like the picture of what most people would think health looks like.
Sure.
But on the inside, I was dying. On the inside, I was falling apart. And it came back to, because even though I had the system for these men, I wasn't activating that system. I wasn't living by that system. And so it goes back to what I said. You don't rise to the level of the goals, you fall to the level of the systems. And my systems were not good enough. My systems were literally living a life by default. And so as I went to all these doctors, they all told me I was healthy. They all told me there was nothing wrong. And I ultimately said, you know what? I have to lean into the system that I've developed for these guys. So I started to look at heart rate variability, which I'll talk about in a second. I started to look into cellular deficiencies. I'll talk about that in a second. Had 21 cellular deficiencies of vitamins, minerals, amino acids. Had an HRV of about 75, which today my HRV runs around 105, and we'll talk a lot about that here in a second.
Yeah.
And then we looked at my sleep quality, and it was about 22%, where it should be actually between 40 and 50%.
Gotcha.
I ended up going to get a colonoscopy and an endoscopy. They found 4 polyps the size of my thumb, all precancerous in my colon. And they found an ulcer the size of a quarter in my stomach that was also precancerous.
And you were what? How old at this time?
32.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Okay.
And the doctor looked at me. He goes, Justin, if you hadn't come in, if you hadn't done this, he goes, you wouldn't have seen your 35th birthday.
Jeez.
And it hit me so heavily, because I'm like, man, the way I was living, the way I was operating, what I was doing on a day-to-day basis, the lack of systems in terms of how I handled and operated stress in my day-to-day life was ultimately going to kill me in the end.
Yeah.
And that led to my stepping out of the NHL, and really now making this way of living, this intentional way of living, this system of an N of one solution available to everybody, basically democratizing high performance, if you will, in this industry, and scaling N of one solutions. And now today we've got a team of about 30, and impacting about 40,000 people around North America. And so it's been really cool just to see how this can all of a sudden change and really start to impart something different. Because for us, our biggest mission is to take the incidence of chronic illness, which is earned from the leading cause of death in the United States at 71%, to less than 50% by the year 2030. And that's going to be through educating, empowering, and equipping people to take ownership of their health in a very personalized way.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, it's huge to, one, understand your body and dive into these things. So there was a time, and I'm trying to it was before I had kids, that for a year, and I'm interested to hear your point on this, and we'll dive into all your or heart rate variations and things. I slept for 3 hours. So I did the polyphasic sleep. So I slept for 3 hours in a block, and then I would do 3 20-minute naps throughout the day. But I was checking my heart rate, I was checking my glucose, I was checking my blood pressure. I was probably eating the best I've ever ate, working out, tracking my sleep quality, and excuse me, it was awesome for a year. I loved it. Like, I felt the best that I ever felt. And then, because at that time I was in a 9 to 5, I was trying to hit all the shifts. I used to be an industrial athletic trainer. The shifts changed. I changed my hours, and kids came in, and all that went out the window. And so, like, it's crazy what the body can do if you understand kind of like the limits and how it works more. And I mean, yours is even deeper than what I understood, because I was kind of just focused on that sleep aspect. But, you said you were handling stress negatively, which led to your issues. How were you handling stress before you started to build this new foundation?
Yeah, so I talk about this a lot in the book, where kind of the subtitle is Redeem Your Health, Live Life by Design, and Break the Relentless Pursuit of Normal. And so what I do is I really put normal and different on a dichotomy. Okay, what is normal in this world? Well, it's normal to be exhausted on a day-to-day basis. It's normal to have brain fog. It's normal to have trouble sleeping. It's normal to have unexplained weight gain. It's normal to just wear exhaustion as a badge of honor. It's normal to push through the discomfort of things that are going on. And this doesn't mean we're on the pursuit of comfort, because I say aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. And quite frankly, what we should be doing is getting used to feeling uncomfortable. However, we can't live there. That's not a place we can live. We have to find a rhythm. And in order to understand the rhythm that you need to find for yourself, you have to realize that mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional stress, real and perceived stress, positive and negative stress, the body doesn't know the difference between.
Right.
So you could have a brand new baby boy or girl come into the world. You could be training for a marathon. You could be trying to build a business. You could be struggling in your marriage. You could be trying to figure out what you're called to do in your life. You could be renovating your home or in the process of moving. Your body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress, real, perceived, positive, negative. And the one response is to go into the sympathetic or fight or flight stage simply to keep you alive.
Yep.
So there's going to be chronic releases of norepinephrine, chronic releases of epinephrine, chronic releases of adrenaline, and chronic releases of cortisol. Well, as you live in that, what happens is it keeps you in this upper left quadrant. I call this quadrant overreaching. And so you live in this overreaching phase. You live here. And the problem is the longer you live here, the heavier the weight becomes, or the more full your cup becomes until it overflows. And it throws you into this burnout space. A lot of people can probably relate to this feeling of where you go for like 2 or 3 months. And you're like, for the first like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, like you're on it, like you feel good, you're on fire. And then it starts to become a drag. And then you start to have mental brain fog. And then you start to be like emotionally unstable. You start to get angry really easily. You start to get frustrated. Sometimes you might cry just at the drop of a needle. You might feel overwhelmed. You might start sleeping not very well. All of your other habits have probably fallen off the wayside. And then there's one day where you just break and you're like, I can't do this anymore. And you either get really sick or you suddenly have a breakdown where you're just like, I need to take 5 days off. And then once you take 5 days off, it's like getting going again is like trying to move a freight train. But then you get back on this same wagon. And maybe you go through this cycle every 2 or 3 months. And maybe it happens 3 or 4 times a year, and this is where you live. Well, in actuality, what I want you to perform in what I call ownership, the upper right-hand quadrant. The way that we get there is we overreach. We have to overreach. We have to stress ourselves, but we have to create a rhythm with the bottom right-hand quadrant, which is called regeneration. And regeneration is the intentional and consistent behaviors that require patience and obedience as to what your body needs in order to recover and regenerate. And that can be in 8 different areas, 8 different categories that I talk about. And that is exercise, sleep, hydration, nutrition, self-care, environment, immune function, and mindset. These 8 levers are areas that you can start to pull on that start to, what I say, poke holes in your cup that help the stress load to drain off so that you can take on more stress. You can actually do more. You can do what you're wanting. You can do what you're requiring. You can do what you're seeking without having that burnout response. Instead, you're mentally clear. You're mentally focused. You feel good. You're energized. You're rocking and rolling on a day-to-day basis. And you're like, man, life is just working. But you've got this rhythm that is established. And what drives that rhythm, how you know if your rhythm is off or on, is the metric I was speaking of, which is heart rate variability.
Yeah.
And that's where I started to do all of my postgraduate research. That's what I started to really lean into in all of the doctoral work I did and all of the research I did and all of it is the base foundation of the personalization and the N of one approach, because what's stressful for me is not stressful for you. The season of life I'm in is not the season of life you're in. So when all of a sudden you tell somebody that they need to have a 3-hour morning routine, that only adds more stress to them. It's actually doing the inverse of what it's supposed to be doing. And so it's not, is cold plunging good? Is sauna good? Is intermittent fasting good? Is time-lapsing your sleep cycles good? It's not, is that good? There's studies that will validate that they're all great practices.
Yeah.
But is it good for you? Right. And that's where we ultimately help to teach, educate, and empower you to understand your data, understand heart rate variability, understand how your body is adapting to stress and strain, so that we can now help you make more purposeful, intentional choices and build a life by design that gives you a great rhythm between overreaching and regeneration, overreaching, regeneration, overreaching, regeneration, so we can live in this powerful place called ownership and live a life that truly is different.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, you're spot on. I think my journey, I've had those process, like those moments. So like going, and then, crashing, like getting sick because of it. So like, I understand, like, so everyone listening, he's spot on, like from a personal experience. He's just not blowing smoke. And if you haven't checked him out, you realize that. But like, just as a personal testimony, like that's so true. What he's saying, if you just can't let it out, if you're not doing the right things for you, that is where you're going to end up, if you think you can do it all. And so, with that, why is tracking these metrics? Like, do you recommend people actually tracking all of these things to get an idea of where they're at, like their heart rate, their sleep quality, and things like that?
100%. And the reason is data determines direction. Data drives decisions.
Yep.
We do this in every aspect of our life. This is how you run your finances if you're successful in finances.
Yep.
This is how you run your business if you're successful in finances. You ultimately, or if you're successful in business, you've got marketing going on. You're not just going to throw $100,000 worth of ad spend out there if you don't know the click-through rate, if you don't know the retention rate, if you don't know the conversion rate, if you don't know the numbers, the data. You want to know, hey, is it working or is it not? Yeah. You won't just go and buy a home willy-nilly without understanding the market value, the interest rate, the mortgage rates, potential if it's a rental property, what the conversion is going to be. Are you going to be right side up or can you not rent it for the amount that your mortgage is? Like, these are all things that you're looking at. You're looking at the data. You're looking at numbers to determine your decision. It's not the emotions. It's not the feelings. It's not somebody's opinion. But yet that's not how 90% of us run our lives. That's not how we run ourselves. This vessel that's so complicated, so complex, we don't think about it. But yet if we deduce it down to a single number, heart rate variability, it can give us such a great insight as to what the purpose and intention of what we need to do and how to build this life by design so that you can have greater capacity and you can be elevated. I'll get sciencey here for a second because people are probably wondering, okay, what is heart rate variability? What does it actually mean? And if you look at heart rate variability, and I'll give this example here. So let's say you have a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute, and I have a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute. We have the same resting heart rate. Science or math would tell us that our heart is beating at 1 beat per second. 60 beats per minute divided by 60 seconds is 1 beat per minute. But that's not how our heart actually works. That's not how our body functions. It only ever beats when it has to. So let's say you are adapting really, really well to stress. You've got a great life rhythm going on. You wake up in the morning, you got a great workout routine, you get your kids off to school, you have a moment of like self-care time, you've got now your to-do list all set out, you're mentally clear, you're focused, you're energized, you're on purpose, you're loving it, you're hydrating throughout the day, you get a little alone time in the afternoon before your kids come home from school, you take them to their soccer practice, you love watching soccer practice, you come home at night, you have a great meal, you shut it down, you've got a nice night routine, you connect with your spouse and you go to bed, you wake up and have a great night's sleep, you do it all the next day. Your body's like, man, we're in a really good rhythm here. Your body becomes like loosey-goosey. It's in the parasympathetic state and a really great rhythm between stress or overreaching and recovery. And so I almost give the example of it's almost like the used car lot windsock that just blows in the wind, very random. And so the time interval between those successive heartbeats is going to be maybe 798 milliseconds, 645 milliseconds, 842 milliseconds, a high level of variability. So the higher the variability, the better you're adapting to stress and strain.
Okay.
Me, on the other hand, I'm not adapting to stress and strain very well. I flew in on a plane last night. I didn't get very good sleep. I didn't work out this morning. I had no food around, so I had some gummy bears and Coke for breakfast. I'm not used to being on podcasts, so I'm really nervous. Like all of these things, and everyone, and my body's like, oh my gosh, Justin is just needing to stay alive. Thus, I need to make sure that I create some more rhythm in his heart, and thus I need to just keep him alive. So all of a sudden the variance goes down. 842 milliseconds, 850 milliseconds, 855 milliseconds, 840 milliseconds. And so there's a low level of variability. So it is a key indicator to help us understand, are the habits, the behaviors, and the lifestyle that you're living in a good rhythm that's either increasing or decreasing the capacity in which you have. And so if you have a high HRV, it's like, man, you're crushing it. You're probably fit. You're probably eating well. You're probably hydrating well. You're probably having a good night's sleep rhythm. You probably have a great self-care and mindset routine. You've probably got a great environment that you're in. You're around people that you love. You're exposing yourself to daylight throughout the day. You're not in fluorescent lights all day. You're getting outside. You're not stuck inside. Like all of these things matter, these little habits that we can start to create change within. But a lot of times it's just hearsay. We just don't have a clue. Conversely, if you have a low HRV, it's an alert going, man, the way that you're living, the habits that you're under are just not operating well. And I'll give you a perfect example. I did fly here on a plane last night, but I woke up this morning with an extremely high HRV. And here's why. Because I have a system. I have a travel framework for how I travel. I pack my food. I make sure that I'm hydrated. I do breath work before and after I get off a plane. As soon as I landed, I went to the gym and I got some type of movement in. I woke up this morning, first thing, I got outside, I saw the sunrise, I had my breath work outside, I got a workout in, I came home, and now I'm ready to go. Conversely, when I was in the NHL, I was just going by the seat of my pants. I'd pop onto the plane, I'd eat whatever's on the plane, I'd get off the plane, we'd get to the hotel, I'd be struggling with like the calendar. I felt overwhelmed all the time. I was under chronic stress trying to get to where I needed to be. All of a sudden I felt like I was behind. Then all of a sudden when the game started, I'd finally feel like I had a moment to breathe. And then when I had a moment to breathe, now I had some other responsibilities I got to hit. And there was no intention behind how I was living. And thus the chronic stress began to kill me. We have to realize chronic stress creates chronic cellular deficiencies, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, creates chronic symptoms. Chronic symptoms we consider normal in our society, brain fog, headaches, overwhelm, fatigue, inability to sleep, which ultimately create chronic illness. And that's the pattern. That's the downhill slope that gets very slippery very fast that we are operating on.
Absolutely. So how can people track that? Are there tools that people can in their home track their heart rate, their variable heart rate?
Yeah, so every wearable device now has it.
Okay.
Every single one. Whether you have an Apple Watch, if you have an Apple Watch, go to Apple Health, go to the bottom right corner, click on Browse. It'll pop up heart rate, it'll click on heart and then heart rate variability. And you can look at your week, your day, your month. You can have an Oura Ring. You can have a Fitbit. You can have a Polar. You can have a Whoop. You can have a Garmin. You can have any of these. They all track it.
Okay.
However, because these technologies have to create some level of IP for themselves to give themselves a valuation, They're going to give you an algorithm or a readiness score or a recovery score or a regeneration score or a readiness protocol. You can throw all of those to the side, throw them out the door, throw them out the window.
Yeah.
Because you need to come back to what your data means, understanding HRV. And if you can understand HRV, you can now all of a sudden empower yourself so well. And that's what we've been able to do within our company, from the way we coach people, the way that we have our video courses, the way that we guide people, the way we empower people. That's what the book has literally been able to do. It's just been now this massive tool that creates N of one solutions and allows people to say, man, I understand this for the first time. I feel like I get what I'm actually trying to do. And I'm no longer confused by, do I do paleo or do I do keto? Do I do all meat? Do I do all vegetables? Do I sleep intermittently or do I sleep all at once? Do I drink a lot of water or do I drink a little water? Do I sauna or do I cold plunge? Like it goes back to what I said. The arguments we've been having in this health and wellness space have been the wrong ones. It's not what's the best. It's what's the best for you. And then I'll even take that a step further. It's what's the best for you today or in this season that you're in, because you talked about it. Pre-kids versus post-kids, very different.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have a favorite? Do you use a Apple Watch or a Oura Ring or?
Yeah, so if you're looking for quality data, but also we go back to consistency, right? So I look at three things. Number one, what's the quality of data that we're getting? Number two, what's the easiest? What's the most passive? What can I do without having to put much thought into it so I can maintain consistency? And then number three, what is cost-wise most effective?
Okay.
Aura and Whoop are your best two for making sure that you can do those three things, because it's literally on your wrist. It's passive data pull all the time. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to do anything. It's just throwing me the data, and now I can process it. The big thing is, and this is my big asterisk on this whole thing, is it's not enough just to go and get a Whoop band or an Oura Ring or start looking at HRV, because you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, what's happening here? I do one thing and I get an increase in HRV. I live and travel another way and I get a different indication of HRV. I think it should go up because I don't feel stressed, but it actually goes down.
Yeah.
I think it should go down because I feel stressed, but it goes up. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And so this comes back to why being able to help take you from a state of knowing, okay, know the information, I have the knowledge, but I don't understand it. So I want to take you from a state of knowing to a state of understanding. And the way I do that is by making it incredibly personal to you and giving you literally your process and targeting through little experiments. So I would give you a perfect example. If all of a sudden we had you have 2 glasses of wine tonight and we looked at your HRV tomorrow, you'd see that it decreased. Well, wow. Having alcohol increases the stress load that I'm unaware of on my body because it has to process
internally,
the alcohol internally. Same thing if I have a high sugar or a high fat or a high processed meal.
Yeah.
Same thing if I have back-to-back Zoom calls and I'm working until 10 o'clock or 10:30 at night right before I try to go to sleep.
Yeah.
The level of process or system in place throughout the day, the moment you become intentional is the moment that you generate and garner awareness that will empower you and convict you to change the way that you're living. And when you change the way that you're living, that is when you get the new outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think gaining the knowledge is one thing, but then understanding what to do with that is critical. And I think, because it could go down, you're like, well, what happened? So if, again, going back to data, so what did you do the day before that could have, the impact of it going down, drinking the wine or working really late. So making those connections. And I think that's why, with where I'm at, tracking what you eat just to see, because it's funny. I tell people, if you'd actually track what you eat, you'd be shocked how many calories you're actually eating compared to the amount that you're burning through not working out, and you wonder why you're gaining weight. it's not that hard with all the processed foods. Like getting like it's intentional and really getting that data, because they won't lie. Like the data won't lie to you. So
it's exactly it. Like I always say that the data has zero level of judgment. Doesn't care who you are, doesn't care how old you are, doesn't care the color of your skin, doesn't care your gender. It literally just is reporting on what is actually happening.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it. I say I trust Jesus, but for everything else, show me the data.
Yeah.
And it's this deep conviction when you're able to operate in a different way. And the one thing that I come back to all the time as the example I gave it earlier is you run every other successful thing in your life off of a KPI or a data point.
Yep.
If you like, think about it, like I'll challenge you right now, like what successfully do you do in your life and what KPI are you looking at for that?
Yeah. I mean, business is just an easy one. You're looking at profit.
Yep.
So that's an easy one.
You look at the health. Somebody asks you, what's the health of your business? You're not going to say, well, it's good. I think it's good. It feels good. Yeah.
What are the profit margins?
What's the profit loss margin? What's the retention rate of your employees? What's like everything? It goes down the list.
Yep.
And it's like health is multifactorial. And so if you don't have a way to measure it, you ultimately can't manage it. If you don't have a way to measure and report it, there's no way to transform it. Yeah. And so that is really where we have to understand is measuring and reporting is the way in which we create any level of transformation, any level of change. And that's really the mission that we're on is I don't want you to develop the own it system. I want you to develop Justin's system, Kevin's system, Peter's system, Stacy's system, Katie's system, whatever your unique system needs to be, because nobody knows what you need better than you.
100%. And I think that's what we have to do. I think a lot of people, just try to do the cookie cutter for everybody. And it just does, even, helping build a business or anything. It can't be, there's pieces that are the same, but how it implements into your life and how you act on it is different, and how it reacts with you and your situations are different. So, this has been really a deep conversation. And now, I know you've got a book coming out. Actually, you have a book out now, a new one. Tell people about that real quick, where people can find it and where they can connect with you at more if they want to find out more.
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit. So the book is called The Power of Ownership, Redeem Your Health, Live Life by Design, and Break the Relentless Pursuit of Normal. And the cool part about this book was I wrote it for the past version of me, like the person that was ultimately looking like they were healthy, but not feeling truly healthy and not understanding what was going on, not understanding their body, feeling helpless in the way that they were operating. And you can grab this book at thepowerofownershipbook.com, thepowerofownershipbook.com. And that's where you can grab it. I say I always have two things with this. I have a hope for people with this book, and then I have a promise. My hope is that it empowers you. It empowers you to take ownership of your health in a very unique way. You will no longer be reliant on a person, place, or thing, but rather allowing you to say, man, I understand my body for the first time, and I feel convicted in a different way that I've never had before. I hope that it equips you. It equips you with the knowledge. It equips you with the wisdom, but then it also equips you with the steps and tools that you can put into your life. And then number three, that it educates you. That it educates you in an entertaining way. It's not a textbook. It's not going to be overly sciencey in the sense of like being over your head. Right. But through storytelling and science intertwining and interacting together, it becomes really educational. So you take something away and have a tangible end result. My promise is that I make it simple. I make it simple and I make it fun. I make it simple, I make it fun, but it also becomes a tool that you will have and use for the rest of your life. You might pull this out 2 or 3 times a year because it becomes this unique tool that is able to now get processed back in a different way as well. And so thepowerofownershipbook.com is where you can grab that. If you're wanting to just understand a little bit more about what we do, how we help and empower people in a more tangible way, you can go to ownitcoaching.com. And we're more than happy to dive into anything else that we can really serve you on.
Awesome. Well, yeah, if you guys listening are interested, definitely check it out. Get connected with Justin. Learn more about the book, about his coaching, and just take control. Of what's going on in your life, and be intentional about it. So again, Justin, been great conversation. Look forward to having you back on again to dive even more into how our cells work, how our body works at an internal level. But thanks again for being on the Elevate Media podcast today.
That was awesome. I appreciate you and opening up your audience and platform.
Absolutely.